अब हम मैनकिस से वाइनरी आए हैं और यहाँ पर हमारा लंच है। तो और उसके बाद वाइनरी का टूर है जहाँ पर कि रेड, वाइट और ग्रे वाइन है। तो पीते नहीं हैं लेकिन फिर भी देखते हैं क्या है।
So welcome to you in Morocco, first of all, and in our winery as Domaine Zuina. So in general here it's an old French estate and which is created in 2002. And by the way, it's a partenariat between two French families, Griblan family and Gervoison family. So both of those two families are trying to do this kind of business here in Morocco in order to produce a Moroccan wine, but with the French technique of preparing it. In general here we have like 115 hectares, 80 hectares of vines and 35 hectares of olive trees. So still we produce wine and also olives oil. We selected the best varieties of grapes like Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Gris, Vermentino, Caladoc, Mourvèdre, Marcelon, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Tempranillo, Viognier, Grenache and the Chardonnay typically for the white wine. And then we have give birth to two brands of wine like the blended wine named as Volibilia, and which is a mix between two or three varieties of grapes, like the Volibilia Rosé, the grey wine, classic as red, and we have the Volibilia also as a blended white wine. And by the way, we have second brand, and which is the highest brand produced here, called Epicuria, like Syrah and Cabernet Sauvignon for the red wine, and we have the Epicuria Chardonnay and Viognier for the white wine. Of course, during the period of harvest here in Morocco, so even we harvest our grapes manually or by using machines, so it depends on the weather. Still the harvest here in Morocco takes place in the month of August, which is too hot, so temperature goes in between 45, sometimes 49 degrees. So this is why we try to harvest some of our red grapes by night by using machines, waiting that the weather gets a little bit fresh and colder to harvest the rest by hand, typically for the white grapes. Of course, all the grapes are received here in this cellar, which was constructed in 2004. And after pressing the grapes, we pumped the white and the gray juice to one of those stainless steel tanks here to start the fermentation process of the white and the gray wine. And by the way, we pumped the red juice to those concrete tanks over there, or cement tanks, typically for the blended red wine as Volibilia Classic. And still, it's a mix between Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Tempranillo. But still it takes much longer time to start commercializing it or testing it for the first time. So in Morocco, all the wineries that exist here, they use like those kind of concrete tanks. Typically still the harvest period takes place in hot weather. So those tanks help us a lot to keep the wine colder and also to avoid aeration and oxidation of the wine. Now there is a separation. So if I do a flash here, you can see some crystals, which is an acid metatartric that helps to avoid the contact between the wine and the cements. So here, this is our zone of production, and like you saw, it's equipped of several machines. We have the first machine of bottling over there. The second machine here helps us to clean the bottles by outside by a push of water, and then bottles goes to the third machine of labeling that helps us to stick the labels in the back and the front of every bottle. And after that, bottles goes to the last step with this, so personally I call it like a beautiful blue machine, and which is put here by the government, normally to control and to count every bottle that we produce every day. So by the way, it's a machine of taxes, so it's really well controlled by the government. In general, we produce like 800,000 bottles per year, so 80% is commercialized locally here in Morocco, and 20% for the exportation. So mainly right now we export to Europe, France, Spain, Belgium and Italy. And you know, with this period of Corona, it was really complicated to be open to a new international markets. But they already started to negotiate with some distributors from California and from Canada. So why not to start exporting our wine to those important markets in the future. By the way, all the wineries that exist here in Morocco, so they produce 80% for local markets. I know maybe for you, you know that you are in an Islamic country, so wine is prohibited by religion and still forbidden by law. So by law, wine is produced for non-Muslims people, not for Muslims. But it's the opposite, by the way. So if you go to some bars, restaurants, riads, Carrefour markets, supermarkets, wine shops, you can find them plenty of Moroccans, people who try to buy wine or drink wine. So it's a hypocrisy sometimes, you see. So it's good for money, but they don't care about our personal preferences. Maybe the law will change with this new generation coming. Yes, yeah. Normally we work with a local distributor, but we sell wine just for visitors, not for direct way for everybody who enter here, ask for wine. It's doesn't work, but for visitors, yes.
Where did you get the grapes when you initially started the winery? Where did the grapes
Yeah,
come
so
from?
still the wine here in Morocco, it's not part of our culture. You cannot find any specific Moroccan varieties of grapes. So most of our grapes are imported from France, but still we have a Tempranillo from La Rioja, from Spain, and still Vermentino from Italy. But the most of the grapes used here, it's from France.
So you're not growing grapes here?
Sure, yes, yeah. You can see the grapes outside.
Those
Yes, so the plants of the grapes imported, but grow here.
But grown here.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I will show you another zone, maybe it will be interesting for you. So, like I mentioned before, so even the aging process of the blended wine as Voulibilia takes place in stainless steel tank or in the concrete tank. But for this highest brand as Epicuria, the aging process differ and take place in wood barrels or in the French oak. So it's spent like 18 months aged for red wine, Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, and 6 months for the white wine like Chardonnay and Viognier. And of course for this kind of wine here we did not produce a lot, so we produced just a 10,000 barrel of each. So it's somehow expensive in local markets here in Morocco, and this is why it's designated for some specific hotels, riads and restaurants, and the rest typically for the exportation. Of course the wood barrels are imported from France and we should use them just for 4 years or 4 operations of aging. And then we have to change them and bring the new wood barrels in order to keep the wine a little bit oaky with this tannin and flavor of wood inside. Of course, in Morocco, we are not lucky to have some distilleries of whiskey to sell them the old wood barrels that we already used. But for us, we construct just some tables, chairs or something to decorate the winery. And of course, in the back here, we have those amphors or jars, which is our first experiment this year in order to start to aged some red and white wine in jars of clay in order to have or to produce a new brand with a mineral wine with the smell of clay and soil, if I can say, inside. So it's an old techniques used before with Romans and Phoenicians when there is no wood barrels existed. So we tried right now to do something from the past, to use something old nowadays. Any question?
Yeah, you can try that with this group here. You know that.
It's not ready. It started just for the last 2 months, so we need to wait for a year, 2 years in order to have a definite result. Yeah.
When you say expensive wine, how much is a bottle?
Yeah, so maybe for you it's not expensive, so it's cost like $25, $30 in supermarkets, but for Moroccans people, $25, it's expensive. So Moroccans people likes wine, so they like to buy a less expensive wine with a high volume of alcohol in order to get drank easily and fast. You see, this is the difference between the wine tasting in Europe and Moroccan way of tasting wine.
This is what, 12%, 13%?
For alcohol, it's in between. So for the blended wine, 13.5, 12.5, 13.5. For the single grape like Epicuria, 14, 15 maximum. Because if it goes to 16, 17, we have to pay more taxes for that because it will be considered like a
Liquor.
spiritual wine, yes.
तो जो ग्रेप्स हैं यहाँ पर ही ग्रो करते हैं, लेकिन वाइन की जो ग्रेप्स हैं वो फ्रांस, इटली इन कंट्री से लेकर आते हैं और उनको यहाँ प्लांट करते हैं। और ये जो वाइनरी आपको दिखा रहे हैं, यहाँ पर वाइन बनती है और आप देख सकते हैं जैसे कि फ्लोर भी पूरी वाइन से घिरी है, स्मेल है और कैसे वाइन बनती है, कैसे यहाँ पर टैंक्स में ये लोग स्टोर करते हैं, ये सब आपको हमने दिखाया है। और जैसे कि हमने पहले बताया, हमारा लंच भी यहीं पर है और तो वेजिटेरियन है, तो वेजिटेरियन का भी हम लोगों ने अरेंजमेंट किया हुआ है। तो यहाँ पर रेड, वाइट और ग्रे वाइन पता नहीं पहले किसी ने सुनी है नहीं सुनी, पर ग्रीन वाइन भी मैंने लिस्बन में सुनी थी होती है, और यहाँ पर वाइट रेड के साथ ग्रे वाइन है। तो चलिए आपको ये हमने वाइनरी का टूर दिया है मोरक्को में, और आप देखिएगा और भी जगह जैसे ये वाइनरी की दिखा रहे हैं। तो अगर आपने सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया कीजिएगा, कमेंट और बताइएगा आपको ये शोज़ कैसे लग रहे हैं। मोरक्को के हमने और भी रबात जो कैपिटल है उसको कवर किया है, तो आप ज़रूर बताइएगा आपको रबात का ट्रिप कैसा लगा। और रास्ते में हम लोग के मैनकेन से होते हुए रास्ते में रुक के हम लोग यहाँ पर वाइनरी में आए हैं, और फिर हम लोग फेस्ट जा रहे हैं। What is the percentage of alcohol in it?
12, I think 13. Yeah, 13. 13.
Okay, so Pete will be not drunk, right?
If you're drinking first time, yes, you might be.
Yeah, so for the blended wine, it's 13, 12 and a half. For the single grapes or the wine that you can preserve it for a long time, it's in between 14 and 15 volume of alcohol. Enjoy, madam. Almonds, it's from here. Raisins, it's some black raisins from here. The pink one, it's from the local market. And peanuts are imported.
This is Moroccan tea.
Yes.
And that's how they pour the tea in the glasses. Now we are leaving the winery and going to where are we going? Fes. And we got olive oil, one big bottle each as a gift from the winery.